topic, and people wanted the recording as well. So we'll get started. Everyone here is a C-suite member, so we'll do quick introductions for those that didn't get to introduce themselves to Ginger, but I'll just briefly introduce Ginger. We're very blessed to have met her and spoken with her late last year. I think I was in Vegas at the airport, and Ginger is just a delight. And
Thank you.
so Ginger's a North American small business lead for Mastercard. She has built out need-based customer-centric strategy and executes through building and co-creating to drive solutions for their partners and users and small businesses. She was also a leader in the financial services group for Deloitte, where she was a member of the highly ranked payments practice with a focus on small business, fintech, bank partnership, and commercial banking. And so with that, Ginger, is there anything you would like to add with your background for the group?
Yeah, no, I think that was great. I a lot of my career has been on the bank side, where I actually led small business at banks like Citigroup and SunTrust and PNC, and I was very, very lucky to be able to lead the entire organization, including salespeople, product development, which really gave me a view into that side of the business. And then now that I have the opportunity to run small business and middle market at Mastercard, many banks are my customers, as well as fintechs and others. So I have an opportunity to touch closely the people that I actually worked with in the past. So it's been great. And small business is a passion of mine. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but it really runs our economy. And so it's really great, Beth, and I appreciate the invitation today.
Thank you. So Jennifer and Damon did get to introduce themselves to Ginger. Tina can't come on, so that's fine. Kim and then Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself just briefly to Ginger?
Hello, I'm Kim Davis. I'm a president and CEO of a nonprofit, Sisters of Providence Ministry Corporation. I started my career in large financial institutions, commercial banking on the treasury side, vice president, senior vice president in corporate finance, commercial banks, as well as like Charles Schwab, Mass Mutual. And then I transitioned to nonprofits about 15 years ago as a CFO and now a president and CEO.
It's wonderful. So good to meet you, Kim, and great work that you do.
Nice to meet
you. Lisa, you want to introduce yourself?
You're on mute. Oh. Sorry, did you say Larissa or Lisa?
I said Lisa, but Larissa, go ahead. We'll get Lisa next.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ginger. Larissa Gurnick, based in Los Angeles. We have something in common. I also spent a number of years in consumer banking, actually, and public accounting as well. Consider myself a closet CPA, but now I'm more about strategy and implementation, particularly in the technology and the nonprofit space. So it's wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Lisa, are you able to come on or to come off mute and introduce yourself? No. So Lisa's out of Nevada, and she's also in the financial institution, VP for a financial institution in Nevada. Laura, welcome. And you're on mute.
There we go. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Laura Ward. I'm a CPA and a partner in a regional CPA firm here in North Carolina. Been in public accounting for almost 27 years. Work with all privately held businesses, small, medium, and large. So it could be somebody with 10 million in revenue or 4 billion in revenue. It just depends. But the bread and butter is that between 10 and 100 million of revenue clients. So that's my background.
Yeah, that's great, Laura. That's a really important space for us too. So super interesting.
Okay, so Ginger, when we met, we talked about a couple different topic areas, and everyone, since it's a smaller group today, please feel free to put questions in chat or just hold your hand up and discuss, because Ginger wanted to make sure this was very conversational. We talked about leadership landscape, power of authenticity, mentorship, and small business spotlight with Mastercard role and opportunity, and then what's next. So maybe start, Ginger, just spotlighting MasterCard and where they are focused on and how they help the small businesses, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, thanks, Beth. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people think MasterCard is a credit card company, right? Because everyone hopefully has a MasterCard in your wallet, but that's actually not true. MasterCard is a technology company that has become very embedded in all different ways that people pay for things, the way people get money, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But where it comes to what people think we do, which is cards, at MasterCard, we are actually a B2B2B company. So we, in most cases, don't go direct to small business, yet they are our really most critical audience. Because what we do is we put the wind at the back of our customers that are banks, different financial institutions, fintechs, whether it be an Apple or a Yahoo. These are our customers, and our job is to make sure that they can serve their customers, their small business customers, well. And a lot of people don't necessarily realize that. So if you have a MasterCard in your wallet, it's because we have worked with that bank, whether it be Citi or Bank of America or Wells Fargo. And then we work with them to build solutions, including different technology opportunities to help end users, be it small business or consumers. And I'll give you a really good example. If you just take small businesses alone, over 50% of all cyber attacks happen on small businesses today. The problem with that is the average cost is about $100,000 to $200,000. So one cyber attack can actually wipe out that business. What we do is we provide excellent tools to really fight cyber attacks, help with fraud that we offer to, let's say, our banks or other partners. And then what that does is it then allows them to provide these services to small businesses. So MasterCard, you might look at as a provider of all kinds of services to our folks that we work with every day. And what's important about that is that because of the fact that we are such a strong technology company, and many organizations don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the time. I know we have someone on from a non-for-profit. They don't necessarily have all the staff. And so MasterCard really serves that role. And in my role, what I get to do is focus specifically on small and middle market businesses. They drive over 50% of our GDP. They account for 64% of all new jobs out there. And roughly, if you take a look at the definition of a business, it could be anywhere from 0 in revenue to $1 billion or more. We kind of focus on that 0 to, let's say, 100 million in revenue company. So that's a little bit about kind of what we do. And again, every day I get to talk to small businesses. I get to work with the providers to small businesses. MasterCard does a lot of work in underserved segments. We focus a lot on Black, female, Hispanic. In fact, a little known fact is the fastest growing segment of small businesses are Hispanic, female, Latinas. And we work with LGBTQ, Asian American. And so in my role, I get to do a lot to help these businesses that have a very, very tough time, especially since COVID.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. So, I lost the role that I wanted to ask you. So what does it mean to be a player in the small business space? And how do you approach needs-based approach?
Yeah, it's a really important question, Beth. And I would tell you, I've been in the business a long time, and anyone who's serving businesses at all has to really think about the ecosystem of small business. And here's what I mean about that. When small businesses or any business wake up in the morning, they don't think about us. They don't think about their bank. They don't think about MasterCard. They think about, how am I going to make payroll? How do I hire these people? How do I pay for my benefits? How do I acquire new customers? And so to me, serving businesses is really about the following. You can't you can't focus on thinking that if you build it, they will come. You have to do a lot of research on this segment, understand what their needs and pain points are, and only then can we as an ecosystem really serve them. So small businesses, just thinking about a bank, small businesses don't need checking accounts. They don't need credit cards. Because in actuality, those things are not needs. Those things are solutions. What they need is help with their cash flow, access to capital. They need help acquiring new customers. They need help being safe and secure. So a needs-based approach is really just that. Instead of focusing on the product or service you want to sell them, we take a step back and we do research so that we know that everything we build, everything we create is based on solving a problem that a business has. And what I would tell you, Beth, I do a lot of speaking nationally. I just spoke at a conference. There were 5,000 people there, all banks and credit unions. And I said to them, it's great that you have something to sell, but how do you know if what you want to sell is what's going to help that business? So that's really what we mean by needs-based. And we truly mean that. A needs-based customer-centric approach is not a nice to have, it's an essential to have.
That's very good. So you've been focused on small businesses your whole career. What are some significant lessons you've learned while working with them, and how has it influenced your strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, it's not only influenced my strategy, but one of the things that it has done is influenced me as a person. When I get to wake up every morning and help a business because of something that we've built or created, it's a good day. And a couple things that I've learned. Number one, there is never anybody out there with more grit and tenacity than a business owner. That's number one. Number two, they've got it really tough because they don't have the resources that big companies do, like a Mastercard. They don't usually have a CFO unless that you're getting into the larger company space. They don't have a chief marketing officer. They don't have a chief risk officer. So they need help with the resources that is going to allow them to run their business efficiently, because many small businesses don't have the ability to be operationally efficient because they just don't have the time to focus on the tools. The other thing that I've come to realize with small businesses is they are not just a part of our communities, they are essential. Anyone who walked down a main street during COVID saw this, the darkness, the closed shops. And in actuality, what happened is of the 33 million small businesses in the US, when COVID hit, a third of them did not have a digital online presence. So think about this. If they didn't have a website, they couldn't sell their products because they were closed. So the importance of digitization and technology has become even greater for small businesses, which is another key lesson and why we spend so much time building digital solutions to enable them to really compete in the space of today, which is how consumers want to buy. And the good news is that since COVID, consumers have started shopping online almost more with small businesses than with some of the big box retailers. So there's been a huge resurgence because people realized my community was nothing without them. So I don't know, Beth, if that, kind of answers the question, but those are just some of the things. And I guess the one thing I didn't mention is how it's changed me personally. There has never been a group that I have been able to influence as much with the products we build at Mastercard, with the strong focus that we have on inclusion. So creating racial, financial, digital diversity amongst these businesses to ensure that everyone is on an even playing field. And I think this is a really important part of what the ecosystem needs to do, because being a part of the ecosystem isn't just about selling them stuff. It's about providing them things that they need, even if you as part of the ecosystem don't make money from it. And so I think it's part of the bigger view of how inclusion is so critical in our society in general.
No, that's very good. Before we move on from small business. Does anyone on the phone want to ask her a question? Because a lot of you are small business owners or part of that. Nope. Okay, so let's move into leadership. So discuss your strategies for managing competing demands, boundaries, and prioritization of what truly matters.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because running the big business that I do in, running all of Canada and the US for this business, it's a lot of priorities. What I think is important, what I've had to learn to do is you have to be able to delineate what's important and what's urgent. And I think that very often we start our day with this enormous book of appointments and things that we have to do. And very often, if you really look at those things, they're really not urgent. And some of them aren't even important, but we tend to fill our days with meetings. So the way I prioritize is number one, my team. Because if I can't get my team to be effective, then I have to be my team. And I really believe in this concept of one to many. If you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And I really believe that because I have a wonderfully talented team so that if I can't be everywhere, they can. So the number one thing in leadership, I believe, is ensuring you've got the right people on the ground with you that have your back and that could actually do the things that you can do to be able to multiply our efforts. So I think that's one area that is really important around prioritization. As far as setting boundaries, my bosses aren't always happy with me because I am extremely vocal about what I think. I believe in complete transparency in a professional way. But if I feel there's something that I'm being asked to do, that is not going to be accretive to my business, to my people, to our revenue, then I choose not to do it. And I think you have to be bold. And I think women in this space, there's still, the leftovers of, can I really say something? Should I say something? I'm worried about my job. And my feeling is if I can't be me and do the thing that they hired me for and prioritize what I think is important, then it's probably not the right place. And I've been with Mastercard now going on 8 years, and it's been a fantastic place where if you show that you are successful in running a business, you get to do what you need to do to be successful. So I would say that's a little bit on setting boundaries. And then as far as competing demands, it comes down to a couple things. Number one, all the time is the customer. So if I've got a meeting, but someone says, hey, can you meet with this customer? Customers have to come first because people forget that we are nothing without customers. So I would say a big part of this, Beth, is also not only in the things that you do, the strategies that you do, but how you do it. Being very specific, very consistent, and very emphatic about what you believe.
No, that's a really good answer. And as we focus on the future and we look at leadership skills as we go down, how have they changed? And how have you been able to deal with, because I know there's a lot with resilience, adaptability, empathy, and strategic foresight. How have you seen or not seen changes in those areas?
Yeah, well, it's a tough time right now. There's a lot going on in the world, and especially when you work for a big company like I do, you have to be able to be extremely agile. What you're doing today and the frame within which you're doing it might be different tomorrow. So I would say agility is very important. And, personally, I've always tended to be a very black and white person, which is not always good. Whether it's my personal or professional life. But what I have found is, especially in these days, gray is the color. You have got to be able to move back and forth between the black and the white, where things seem exactly how you think they are. But if you can't move in the middle, it's very, very difficult. The other thing is from an economic perspective, we obviously work a lot and relate a lot to what we do to our economy. When the economy is down and people are uncertain, sometimes consumers spend less, small businesses spend less. consumers spend less on small businesses. And so we have to be very adaptable and also watch things. Sometimes it's hard to watch the news, but you have to. You have to understand what's going on so that you can run your business in a way that can make small changes and tweaks along the way. You can't wait till the end of a month to watch what's going on. So I would say there's a lot changing, and adaptability. I don't think it's a nice to have. I think if a person isn't adaptable, they're going to have a very difficult time operating in our current environment just because things are always in flux.
That's for sure, for sure. So if you would advise young entrepreneurs or emerging leaders on leadership, where would you tell them to focus? How would you tell them to build their tool set?
I think for business owners, it is very easy to get lost in the daily grind of running your business. Very often, depending on the size of a business, they do everything. Chief cook, bottle washer, do the books. They might be raising a family at the same time. I think the number one thing that's important in leadership is surround yourself with people that can help you do what you need to do to be successful. It might be a paid employee, it might be a mentor. I do want to talk a second about mentors because, at Mastercard, we just built out a really cool small business AI chatbot, which is going to be a mentor for small businesses through AI. And what's really nice about it is if a small business wants to understand, how do I run my business? How do I set up a website? I want to open a dry cleaner on the Upper West Side, and I don't know where to do that. And this can tell them that. So I think that mentorship is really important, and small businesses not only need to surround themselves with people that can help them, but also people that may have nothing to do with their business, like mentors. So I think that's really important. A lot of times small businesses feel if I don't do this myself, then it's not right. You need help. Everybody needs help, whether it's in a corporate position, whether it's Beth with what you do with C-suite, everybody needs help. And so I think it's helping businesses understand that they need to open their aperture and feel comfortable asking for help, because there are so many pitfalls out there, but there's also a beautiful rainbow that if you can get it right, you can be really successful.
That's great. Does anyone have any questions on leadership before we move to a different topic? And just know you're all on mute, so feel free to jump in there. Okay. All right. So the power of authenticity. And this has been an interesting one throughout my career. I've seen some of the vice presidents I've worked with, I've been in corporations my whole life, be authentic, and some it's been good and some of it's been bad. So what do you feel that authentic leadership really means, and why do you feel it's critical for women in the workplace?
Yeah, I think this is a really, really tough one. I just did an event with one of our largest bank customers, and we had 400 executive women in the room. And I'll be honest with you, I was shocked at the amount of pain many of these women were feeling, even in these very senior roles. And I think the biggest part of that is people's concern about being authentic. And people feeling that if I am authentic, then something bad is going to happen. I feel authentic leadership is incredibly essential, especially in women, to really show people. And I think one of the big advantages of female leadership is that empathy, is that support, is that, sense for people to be a little vulnerable. And I feel that all the time. I mean, very often I will have one of my team members come to me with a problem, and I will bring up something personal that has happened to me, because I think that if you share those personal anecdotes, you get people to feel that, I can survive. I always share with people that, I had a tough childhood and I could have gone either way. I could have, buried myself in a hole and said, I can't do this. Or I could have really believed that I was going to be uber successful because I was good at what I did, and I was good with people, and I cared, and I had empathy. And so I think it's getting people to understand, even in those toughest times, to find the good thing about you and know that that authenticity and showing that to others is critically important. And so I think it's about, embracing who you are as an individual and not allowing other people to define who that is. I have this conversation with my daughter all the time. And to me, that's what authenticity is. And to be really kind of transparent here, working for a company that people feel does not allow them to be authentic is probably not the best move. I'm super lucky because I work for a company that has allowed me to be authentic and spread that authenticity around our company. So I think that's really, really important, and people need to think about that because you can't give in to that. You've got to really stay the course. Otherwise, it changes you as a person.
No, I totally agree. So the one thing that we didn't discuss is what is your personal experience as being a mentor and a mentee, and why do you feel that's mutually beneficial?
I love that. I love that question. So I am super lucky. Not only do I get to mentor a lot of small businesses. So we have these contests with PGA and MLB where small businesses can apply for this contest. And if they win, they get a lot of cool things. They might throw out the first pitch at the World Series. They might throw out the first pitch at the All-Star game. They might be able to set up a little restaurant pop-up on the 12th hole of a major PGA championship. And then they last an hour with me. And I get to sit with them for 1 hour and really talk about the problems and concerns that they have. And because of the fact that I have a banking background, I can really talk to them about financials. And it's amazing the things that people talk about, whether it's problems running the business, whether it's problems with employees, where do I get capital? I'm running out of money. So that's a huge part of what I do every day. And it's incredibly, incredibly rewarding, especially when then you see that business really knocking it out of the park. The other thing I get to do is I also, and I don't know how to say no, which is why I do this probably way too much, but I mentor a lot of women and men at Mastercard, where I'll give, an hour a week, and sometimes it gets to be a lot of hours. But one of the things that people notice, they tell me, they said, well, you've built a brand here. Like, people know who you are. And you always say what you mean. How do you do that? And so what I try to do is show people, look, I have always said what I meant, and I'm still here. And I have done very well in my career. So, don't be afraid. And so I think it's really those two groups, the small businesses that I mentor, as well as a lot of the employees here, to be able to impart the power of being authentic and not giving up on what you believe.
Great. Going to this back to the small business, I know I'm a little over it, but do you feel that small businesses are making a rebound and their numbers are coming back? I know through COVID that there was a huge drop and a lot of closures. So how do you kind of see the landscape of small businesses?
Well, let me tell you, I'll give you some real numbers. Between 2018 and 19, there were 876,000 new small businesses that formed. In 2024, just 5 years later, there will be 6 million. So you think about a rebound, that's a rebound. And it's interesting because we know exactly the states and what the growth is. And I was just with a customer, and we looked at the main states that they were in. I think it was Arizona, Texas, and one other. And each of those states was growing at like between 45 and 65%. So they are rebounding. Some of this came from the Great Resignation, where after COVID, people thought, you know what, I am sick of doing what I don't want to do. I want to do what my passion is. And I think more and more, as things are going on, in the United States, and people either lose their job, many of them are trying to live what they consider to be the dream. The other thing is, this is a crazy stat, 75% of Gen Zers say that they want to own their own business, 75%. And so the point there is that I think business ownership is alive and well. It's not to say they don't have struggles, but what's more important is more and more people want to own their own business. So I think that this profound growth is going to continue.
Well, it'll be interesting to see then how that plays against corporate America, right? And the massive real estate corporate America owns, and then also what they need from a workforce to keep these huge companies afloat like Boeing, which I work at, right? So I do know a lot of people like myself have side gigs, right? And they
Yep.
work 2 or 3 different jobs
Yep.
as they go too. So that's part of it as well. What are you focused on in the next quarter and the next 2 quarters? Where's kind of your focus?
Yeah, there's a couple areas. We just put out a big press release yesterday on a new product that we developed for middle market companies. And then another one's coming out on Thursday. What we're really focused on is a couple things. One is we believe that any bank or anyone that serves small business should be a place where that business grows into and not out of. So we're very focused on making sure that we can build and create credit cards, products, and services for the continuum of a business, from the time it starts to the time it transitions its business. So that's number one, which is making sure that we can serve businesses through every stage of their life cycle. The other thing we're focused on is really thinking about things other than credit cards. So there's about $6 trillion that people pay for things that aren't on credit cards. And they might be using ACH, they might be using cash and checks. Believe it or not, 41% of small businesses still use checks. And so the other thing we're focused on is looking at some of these very archaic payment methods and figuring out how do we create different ways for people to do that. And I'll give you another example. For a small business or any business, it's important that they get their own money in fast and then make sure that for their cash flow, they pay out as slow as they can without, of course, being late. So you think about if you're a business and someone writes you a check, you hope it's not going to bounce. It takes you a day or two to get to the bank. Once you get to the bank, it takes 5 days for that check to clear. So you ostensibly aren't getting your money sometimes for 6 to 7 days. But if I accept a credit card, I'm going to get my money right that night, immediately that night. And so we're trying to help small businesses get their own money in quicker. The other thing is if anyone's had a plumber, it's not fun.
No,
but
and expensive.
and expensive. So Josephine the plumber comes to your house and she fixes your toilet. Many times Josephine then goes back to her office, sends a paper bill maybe a week later, and then maybe a week later you'll pay her. What if Josephine could stand in the bathroom, send you the bill digitally, and have you pay her right there by tapping on her phone? That can happen today. We have those tools. And so what we're trying to do is really help the entire ecosystem become much more efficient in managing their cash flow. And then the other area that we're looking at are just different types of, think about how you pay rent, and think about if you're a business, how you pay your insurance, how many people still write a check. And so there's a lot of different ways that we're looking at the entire payment ecosystem, particularly in my role, how we can help businesses to be better.
So you do see us, it's interesting because we visited the Federal Reserve here in LA. We took a group of executive women and they did the whole tour and we saw the cash and all that. Now, their opinion was that there's a huge demand for physical cash and that they still see that happening across the country and the globe, although you keep hearing the transition from that. And when you go to stadiums and so forth, they're all
Yeah.
cash. Yeah. So what's your kind of perspective on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, we had our past CEO, Ajay Banga, who I was incredibly fond of. He's an amazing leader. He would always say that, and this is true in his home country of India, but he would always focus on a potentially cashless society. Now, I think cash is still there, and I don't know if we're ever going to eradicate it, but you think about a store owner who collects cash instead of let's say, accept credit cards. What do they have to do with that cash? They have to deposit that cash. Maybe they can be robbed. Maybe that cash can be lost. And so we feel that cash, I personally believe cash will always have a place. There's some societies where they are cashless, like India, countries like Norway. And then there's countries like Brazil that still use a ton of cash. So I think it's still going to be there, but more and more, I think people are going to realize that it's safer, it's quicker, less burdensome to not deal in cash, especially when it's so easy to pay. You can pay with your phone, digital wallet. You can tap on someone's phone. You can tap on the counter. So it's a much easier process, which I think will perpetuate the continued eradication of cash.
I just know, and I know a lot of small businesses like nail salons and all that, they want cash because they don't want to pay the merchant fee. So they always want cash.
But more and more
Yep.
people are charging two prices, one for cash and one for credit card. And I have
Yeah.
anyway, because I get for all those reasons, but also I have a record. Who wants to sort? I have a small business. I mean, I don't want to sort through paper. Trust
Yeah.
me, I don't want to sort through paper.
No,
Get
no.
everything. It's in the spreadsheet. I sort it. I'm done.
And Jennifer, you brought up a really good point, and it's funny. I went to a shoe store a couple weeks ago, and he said, and so when I went to pay, he goes, "Oh, I have to charge you 3.5% more if you're going to pay by credit card." I said, "Really?" I said, "I don't see a sign here. Legally, you can't do that unless you have a sign up." And so we went through this whole long thing. But Jennifer, to your point, what people don't realize is that 3.5% that you pay, or let's say for many of these, it's like 2.5% that you pay when you accept cards. You are saving so much money for being, let's say, an NSF check that you have to pay $35. The fact that your money isn't going to be in that account that night because you have to deposit the cash. So you got it, but it's tough for a lot of people. And it's a really big issue right now because a lot of people want to pay by credit card for all the reasons that I said and that you said, but some merchants are making it more difficult. So there's a lot of work that we're doing kind of back channel to talk about that. I could give 10 million reasons why that merchant shouldn't be charging a surcharge for people that use their card.
So thanks for that. Is there any advice you give businesses that have been established and would like to grow? Is there any advice you would like to give them?
Yeah, it's a great question because a stat that I just got recently is over 67% of small businesses want to start operating internationally. And I think in the past, businesses thought, I'm too small, I can't go global. But in reality, there's tremendous opportunity to look across border. So even if you look at, I'm in Canada right now, right? So, a business in the United States could work with Canada, and forgetting about the whole tariff situation, we won't get into that. But there are many opportunities cross border. The Mexico-United States corridor is very active in a good way. The Canada kind of US is very active. So that's number one, which is kind of looking beyond, the United States. Number two is, I think sometimes where people get messed up in growth is they want to do everything. And maybe it's, what? You've been so successful at these two products. Let's pick one more that goes with those two instead of, I want to roll out 8 new products. So I think it's really growth that's done very mindfully and deliberately. And it's very, very possible. We see huge opportunity for businesses. And that's why we, as I mentioned before, we built out this continuum of products, because a small business today that does, let's say, 500,000 in revenue could do 2 million next year, 5 million the next, and ultimately be the big company that they look to be. So I think it's being very deliberate in your growth, thinking carefully about why you want to add on that particular product, and also going beyond your geography.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Ginger, for everything. And we'll go around the room and just take a quick
Yep.
question and a lesson that you learned or a takeaway. So, Laura, I'm going to get you first. So, if you have a question or a takeaway that you learned today, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, the takeaway, I just actually enjoyed hearing more about what Mastercard is and does, because the misconception of, oh, it's just a credit card company. And then also just hearing all the things that you have gained along the way, and working with small businesses through your experience with Mastercard. So my takeaway is just that. Nothing specific that I need to focus on, but I really enjoyed hearing that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lauren. Look, you serve with the work you do is incredibly important to what they need as well. So I think it's great. And it's so much fun to work with businesses, isn't it? I mean, they're just so cool and they love showing you around. And I just really just get a warm spot in my heart for them. But thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you so much for your comments.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa, you want to just introduce yourself briefly, and because we didn't get to before, and then if you have a question or takeaway.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lisa LeBou, and I'm the business banking manager for a small bank in Las Vegas,
Wow.
and we do a lot with small businesses and a lot with medium-sized businesses, and we actually have a lot of companies that grow between the two. So that's kind of our bread and butter. But I really like what you said about leadership because it's very difficult in my job to prioritize my time between my team and the customers. I'm responsible for all of our customers, current and new, and it's hard to decide who's more important than the other, and there isn't. They're all important. They're all urgent.
Yep.
Everything's critical. So it's always been a challenge for me, but I really like what you said about prioritizing sort of customer first, your team second, which is kind of new for me. So it's like, oh, you're right. I can't do it all myself. So that was powerful for me.
No, thank you. And look, I mean, look, you obviously are really good at your job. Imagine if you could create mini yous and then you had people out there. So that's why, and when I say customer first, I mean, you got to take care of customers, right? Or we have no one's going to pay us, and we all like to get paid so we can buy stuff. But I do think the team is way more important. And I had to learn this the hard way. It's very hard to let go of what you do and trust someone else to do it. But if you do that, then there's 4 of you out there doing 4 times the work. So I really believe in that concept, but I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, and then Larissa.
Well, my takeaway is basically a segue from what you were just saying, related to leadership. It's as I moved to nonprofits and smaller organizations, I found that it was difficult for me to suddenly be forced to do a lot of jobs, whereas I was used to a department that was very focused, that had a lot of people working on a common thing. So what you were saying about, surrounding yourself with other people who can help you to be successful, that's a takeaway for me, and understanding that it's helpful to be a mentor to people and to bring them up and train them and help them understand how to do some of the jobs, so that you can, in a sense, clone yourself, not have to do it all yourself. So
Yeah.
I like what you said around that.
Thank you. And I like what you said, Kim, about cloning. I haven't used that one. Do you mind if I steal it? I really like that one. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. That's great. Larissa, and then Damon.
Yeah, what resonated with me, Ginger, was your commentary about authentic leadership and being authentic. I think that's true, certainly true for women in leadership, but also for men. I have 3 sons who are in the workforce, and men have some of the same challenges. I think many, depending on the cultures that they find themselves in, where they're concerned about expressing their true sense and their true voice. So your comments about being authentic and leaning into that, and if you don't feel like you can, then maybe it's not the right place. That really resonates with me, and I've found myself throughout my career in those kinds of environments where I knew in the gut that I probably shouldn't say something because it's not going to go off well, but also that this is probably not the right place for me in the long run. So, and especially I think as we all get older and wiser and maybe a little less caring about other people's opinions, I think it's just a good reminder, authenticity and leading through that, and also mentoring our teams and helping our people understand how they can succeed by being authentic and true to themselves. So that
No,
was
Lisa,
my takeaway.
I love that. And I love what you said about your sons too. I think it's really getting harder for men too, because people are more focused on what they're saying, how they're saying it, how did you mean that? And so I think authenticity has to be both. That's why I do mentor a lot of male colleagues as well. And sometimes they have different things they're worried about. How did that come off? Can I really say that? So I love what you said. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you, Larissa. Damon?
A wonderful talk, by the way. I took a whole page of notes. One of the things that spoke to me the most was the needs-based approach. I always talk about identifying stakeholder needs, and I love the fact that you said you need to focus on what they actually need. I mean, they could use another credit card probably and buy some stuff, but they have no customer acquisition strategy because they don't have a chief marketing officer, a small business. And figuring out what you could help them with that they will appreciate when they get over the current hurdle to grow into a real business. And then you could sell them whatever you want. So I love that. I love the needs-based approach segment that you talked about.
Yeah, Damon, and congratulations to you for already doing that. I will tell you, and I meet with very, very senior executives of very big banks and very big organizations, and sometimes it's kind of scary, that they don't see that and they think about what they need. And at the end of the day, it just won't work well. And that's why we talk a lot about it. So kudos to you for looking at stakeholder needs, because that's not happening all over. So thank you for that.
That's great. Yeah. Felicia, you want to introduce yourself? I think you kind of joined in a little bit later. You're on mute, just so you know.
Yeah,
There you go.
gotta unmute. Now that I'm unmuted. Hi, I'm Val Dantzler. I go by Val Dantzler and I work for a community college.
Oh, how great. I love that.
Yeah, so I'm in the education world, and we know there's so many different points that came out that resonated with me, but one is just not having enough time in the day to get everything done. And I joined this C-suite because I intentionally wanted to be able to carve out time for my own personal, professional development. And it's just so much going on, and it's just like, even being late to this, it's like I'm always getting pulled. It's like, I gotta go, I'm gonna do this. So I committed to doing this intentionally for myself, because we work, we do for others, and we don't always do for ourselves. So that was big, and tied in with what Lisa was saying. So that was one thing. And then the authenticity piece is also so critical, because the coding that we do in the different environments that we're in, and sometimes having to feel like, am I saying the right thing, not saying the right thing? Just even if you're looking for jobs, how do you find that authentic company that can accept you? I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. How do you do that when you interview? How do you find that right company that's going to match your values, et cetera, et cetera? So I could go on and on, but anyway,
Yeah.
those are 2 points that I take away from this.
No, I love that. And I'm kind of jealous of you, because the one thing I don't do very well, I mean, I do a lot of things not well, but one of the things I don't do well is what you said, which is, how do you make sure that you're doing things for you? And I love that you said that. And I can totally see why being part of C-suite, just based on what I see being done, that's something you do for you. So I really, really like that a lot. And I'm actually going to keep that in mind because I don't do a good job of that. But kudos to you for that. And not only are you doing something for yourself, but then you're also gaining and then able to share that knowledge with many of the people that you work with and the students at the community college. So it's very much a win-win.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Val. Jennifer, you want to bring us home?
I'll bring us home. I appreciate the authentic. There are a couple things I want to talk about. The authenticity. When I was in the my background's in corporate finance, investment banking, and now I do CFO strategy work as a consultant. And I find that I'm much more able to be authentic as a consultant than I did ever in the corporate world, where they were like, well, if you're not contributing new ideas and we have to then help you, then why are you here? And then you do that, and well, we don't want you not doing, brown nose to me. So it's much easier outside of that. And then, this is what your service is. But that also segues into the need, which is, people have a need, but they can't express it. And then they'll go like, well, I need a business plan. Well, it's not a product. You need this. This is what a CFO does. This is what a chief strategy officer works. And since I've been working with C-suite, I have changed my branding. It's the same work. I've just changed my branding, and everyone gets the value when you explain it that way. So, but that's what the need is. And then people will say, oh, I need the, and when you talk to them, that's not what they need.
Yeah.
They need something else. They're not always receptive, but at least you've been able to guide them. You can guide people. You can't actually make them,
Exactly.
do that.
If only you could. If only you could. Okay.
I know. And Jennifer, I love what you said, because people don't realize how important the kind of personal brand or the brand that you are within is so important. Like, I didn't even realize that I had a brand, like for just me personally. Like, I didn't realize it until the CEO started mentioning my name. And I thought, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, in a good way. So I think you nailed it. And I think something else you said I just wanted to comment on real quickly is when you said that people think they need certain things. What I tend to find is very often what people think is a need is really a solution, and it's not the need. There's something more underlying if you dig. And I remember that, Jennifer, when I was a consultant too. It's so much easier to do that stuff when you know you're going to hand the deck over and leave. And then it's really different. Thank you for your comments. Excellent.
So Ginger, how can people find you, or should they connect
So
on LinkedIn, or-
yeah, so I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. I post a lot. I post a lot about, speaking I'm doing, but more importantly, I also, post a lot about just my feelings about being in this business. Also, there's really good stuff on the stuff we do. For example, my post yesterday was on our new product that we marketed. And I get great response. And then I'll post things like every year I do a whole tirade on, there's Small Business Saturday, and I go on a whole tirade of why is it okay to just celebrate businesses one day, in deference to our competition. But yeah, please follow me on LinkedIn. And if you want, send me reach out, connect with me, and then send a message. And I'd love to, spend any more time that people want, or just to discuss something, or they thinking about different opportunities, that I can possibly assist with, let me know.
Thank you.
And
Great.
Beth, also, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you
Sure.
so much. I think the organization's fabulous, and I can see you've got some really great members. And it was really an honor to spend some really nice time with you all today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger, so much. And everyone have a fantastic week. And we join us for another great virtual event. But we appreciate you and appreciate you being members. Thank you so much. And thank you again,
Thanks,
Ginger.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Follow
you.
up. Bye-bye.